Good evening, C3 parents. I'm your coach, Karien Pitout, and welcome to another conversation. Actually, tonight I'm doing something quite special. First of all, a bit of a where we're at with the shelving and the background. I'm go sorting through books and things and um, trying to figure out what I want to do with the background. But at least we've got a little cactus over there and we've got the little snuggie over there, and I'm super excited, like getting little bits and pieces of my vision ready. All right, guys. So tonight we are going to do a book review. This book, Humankind, uh, hopeful, a hopeful history that's better, by Rutger Bergman. And what an amazing book this is! It is basically a book that is written to challenge our mindset, and to get into looking at the world and looking at life a little bit differently. So we all are raised, or most of us are raised, and this is why this is such an important book to read for parents. Um, we tend to raise our kids with the mindset that the world is a deep, dark, scary place out there. And thanks to social media, I think our walls just came up quite more significantly. And with social media and how the algorithms and all of that runs, it is so easy to almost feel like you want to lock up your kid in this little bubble wrap in this cupboard and let them just not live at all. Someone recently asked me if if I sometimes regret having a kid in this day and age. And to be honest, there are times that when I actually get absorbed and sucked into the negativity of the world and how exposed we are to the social media negativity media machine. um, it's easy then to sit and wonder, like, did we do the right thing to have kids and actually make the conscious choice of having kids um, in this day and age. And ironically enough, the person that asked me this question was actually the life partner of the person that gave me this book to read. We were having a conversation about social media and how things almost seems a little bit more bleak than when we grew up. And he kindly sent me the book and spoke about the book, and I actually had the opportunity to work through this book. And guys, what an amazing book this is! um, it basically goes and look at all the different studies from and information that we have from World War II, like how the Brits actually handled as a community the consistent bombing, the almost the not just the resilience but the kindness in humanity, that changes and shifts our perspective. I actually want to read you a quote out of this book that really got me thinking, and I would love to at later stage actually really expand on this idea of how we build into this with our parenting. On page 4 of Humankind, chapter 1, it says there is a persistent myth that by their very nature humans are selfish, aggressive, and quick to panic. It's what the Dutch biologist Frans de Waal likes to call the veneer theory, the notion that civilization is nothing more than a thin veneer that will crack at the merest provocation. In actuality, the opposite is true. It's when crisis hits, when the bombs fall and the floodwaters rise, that we humans becomes our best selves. Oh, I almost read that wrong. Becomes our best selves. And the and then the book just carries on. It talks about the concept of man, the boys, the fly, the if there's the story that where boys end up on a island, and now for the life of me I can't remember the it's a book, Lord of the Flies, there we go, Lord of the Flies, and how like it quickly deteriorates, and how we as society kind of focus ourselves on the negative and the deterioration, and that we start mistrusting our neighbor, we start mistrusting every single person on the street, and that that we kind of we teach our kids, that we carry that message over to our kids. So we're a bit more cautious, where our body language and everything actually gives the communicates the message to our kids that the life or the world outside our home is far more scary, far more dangerous, almost as if you have to live in a hyper aroused state. Now, in a lot of countries, crime rates and all of that, if you really go look at the statistics, yes, there are certain countries where there is a significant amount of violence within the society. But the interesting thing is, and you go and look at one of the countries, a country where I come from. Earlier this year, we had this huge riot that happened, and it was devastation, and there was a lot of people like constantly living in fear. But the interesting thing is, about like literally the next day, um, we want to, on the one hand, want to say, look at how good the South Africans are. You're like, after like the next day, you just saw communities pulling together, going to the stores, helping owners of stores that was burnt down or raided to clean up, to try and get things fixed, trying to pull together. And this is basically one of the things that this book basically says, is that even though we are absolutely inundated with violence and with how cruel and bad humans can be, thanks to the news cycle, that whole veneer, the reality is, if you really go look at the reality, there's more kindness, there's actually deeper care. People actually pull together. And in this book, it cites studies, it cites events, historic events, where you can actually see how communities pull together after a big tragedy happened. And an interesting thing that they found in the research as well, that gets stipulated here, is the safer the world becomes, or something becomes, the more highlighted if something goes wrong, that it becomes. So, for instance, one of the examples that Rutger uses, I mean, just yeah, Rutger, just make sure I pronounce the name correctly, uses, is where they did a study on aeroplanes. Now, if you go and look at the amount of the percentage of people that is afraid to fly, increases almost yearly. But the planes itself becomes safer and safer and safer and safer. But what happens, the plane tragedies actually becomes less and less and less due to the safety standards that increases. So when a tragedy like that actually happens, the media puts such a big spotlight on it, and the story stays in the news cycle for significantly longer than what it used to do when airplanes weren't as safe. And you can go look at cars, you can go look at even incidences where house um, break-ins and all of that. We actually even, like, on our TVs, we've got a channel dedicated to um, solving crime mysteries and all of that. And if we keep on consuming this news, and if we keep on consuming the negativity that we find in social media and in the news cycle and all of that, and even some of the fiction that we read, we kind of get this wonky idea that it's almost we're living a life where every person's out there just for themselves. And how does it play into our parenting? First of all, obviously, we become more strict with our kids. Our kids have less independence, less freedom. They actually grow up to become independent. To become dependent on us for a far longer period of time than what their brain development says, where they should have certain independence. Um, we restrict movement, and yes, there's on the one hand, there is a necessity for caution. Um, we live in bigger populations, so yes, there is a percentage of increased risk. But the reality is, if you go look economically and socially and all of that, we are living as a society in almost like the best possible position to raise kids, economically. there is less people living in poverty now. I do say a lot of people will come back and reason say, yeah, but thanks to COVID, there's a lot of things that kind of backslid. But it really didn't backslide back to the 1950s or to the Great Depression. It it's still, we are still actually still better off. We're still in a better space. We are actually living safer lives. A lot of things have become more safe. We joked when our kids were very young, we watched a stand up comedian, and I wish I could remember her name. And she actually made this joke like she went to a park. And when we grew up, like our toys didn't have warning labels, there were lawn darts, there were um, dangerous toys for kids to play with. And yet now every single thing that you get is we need to read the packaging, and everything is being makes it made significantly safer. We live in an era of vaccines, where there's so many medical advances that people actually live longer and have healthier lives. We live in an era of information, not just negative information, but positive information. And that we need to sometimes just pause with how we work with our kids and remind ourselves that there is far more progress, a significant amount of more freedom that we have. We live in an era where women have more rights, where there's just a significant push, where life is actually getting better and better as the years go on, and people's living standards actually improves. Obviously there is individual situations that this is a blanket statement. It's the average that improves. It does not mean that there's still, that's not, there's no people that they thank you, um, that that there's people that is not living in poverty. It's not saying that. It's not saying that capitalism might be a problematic system, or maybe a problematic system, because it kind of keeps on creating a bigger and bigger and bigger gap between the have-nots and the haves, and that things like democratic socialism, where there's a certain culture of caring for the community, is it is important. It is very interesting that if you go and look at what is described in this book of how humanity pulls together and how they move together, and how good and kind people actually are, that it makes more and more sense that you will find more and more countries where there's a social safety net for every single person that lives in that country, and that helps them live, because their lives is not worth less than the person that earns more money than what they do. Um, it it really just kind of helped me to rephrase and refocus, and be able to do something like self-care, to take a step back from the media that I consume and go and be critical about what I consume. Because, and I've actually picked it up in my parenting. Since I've started reading this book, I've actually started making um, conscious choice of I'm only consuming news on a Friday or once a week. I consume news so that I can stay up to date. For me, it is important to know what's going on around the world. When I'm involved in social media, I pick one day where I will work at specific things that focuses on the negative side of society, um, because unfortunately, things like racism and inequality and all of that won't get fixed with a la di da, now I'm ignoring everything attitude. We still need to be aware of it. We still need to work at it. But that's it. The movement against oppression, the movement against poverty, the movement against things that rips people from their human dignity is growing, because there's so many people that humanity, there's actually goodness in humanity and kindness in humanity. So that's part of my self-care lately. I'm more positive, I'm more free. I find that I actually engage with my kids far more positive. I'm more willing to allow them to test out certain strategies on independence. And it's actually easier to raise my kids now that I've started picking up. But remember the spotlight is on this. Let me go look at the true statistics. Let me go look at the real significance and check that veneer, because people, the whole world, people, you get, yes, you get bad people, but it's in the minority. It is not the majority of humanity. So guys, do yourself a favor, go get this book, Humankind: A Hopeful History. Please note, I am in no way affiliated with the writer. I'm in no way making money from this book. I don't even have a link where you can buy it. I honestly, it was a gift that was given to me. So do yourself a favor, go get the gift for yourself and go get this book. It will just help you rewire how you approach things like the news and media, and just how you approach life and how you approach other people. One last thing that I've picked up when I've started reading this book is it actually made it easier for me to start making friends. As we grow older, we are scared to push into spaces. It becomes more difficult to make friends. There is actually statistics that show that if someone lived and grew old in a specific area and a specific neighborhood, and they decide to uproot themselves and move to a different state or a different province or city, it's they've got a higher risk or a higher chance of actually then become completely isolated and experience deep depression and loneliness. And because it's difficult to make friends the older you get, you've got your quirks, you're holding on to much more of your inhibitions, you're a bit more weary of people. And the interesting thing, actually, as having moved from one country to another, it takes effort to reach out and make friends with people. And this actually helped me to reframe my perspective when I reach out to people, not with the assumption you're really good just because I'm a foreigner, or just because I'm different, or I struggle with your language. Um, you're not necessarily going to reject me. So instead of expecting rejection when I'm engaging with people, I'm expecting kindness. And this book really helped me. And I'm trying to live that example with my kids. And we're fortunate. We've actually really made, in the past 6 months, since we've arrived in this country, we've made friends that we can socialize like friends. It's not an acquaintance, it's people who we are starting to build a journey with, because our approach to people have changed. And that is what I want us to transfer to our kids, that your approach needs to become to a space where um, I'm not expecting you to reject me. I'm going to be here, I'm going to reach out. If you reject me, that's okay, it doesn't make you a bad person, but that rejection also does not hurt as much, because I didn't it in no way did it confirm a storyline or a script in my head that says, oh, the people are bad, or people are mean, or people are negative, or people are um, unfriendly, or, you're so weird, that people won't like you. Um, all of that kind of shifted, and that approach of neutrality, almost like, hey, I'm here, who are you? And let's get to know each other, really changed that. And I could see from our kids, the moment we've started making friends and starting treating people on face value, they actually got emboldened to really start trusting their own voice and taking their agenda and taking their independence and reaching out to other people. So we were starting to really be able to set an example, um, on how to connect with people and just finding our trust in humanity again. Guys, I think this is where I'm going to end tonight. Please stay safe. Like, regarding no, please stay safe, after I said the world is not that bad. um but yeah, take care of yourself. I'll see you guys in 2 weeks time. You can see, as the studio is busy building up, I'm sorting out the final stuffies with my camera. So hopefully next time we'll be able to sort things out. And if you have any comments or any other books that you want me to read and review, and how it could tie in with parenting, or just have a really nice book recommendation for me, please feel free to drop it down below in the comments. And I'll see you guys in 2 weeks' time. Stay safe. Love you. Cheers.